In 1989, the US invaded Panama to arrest Manuel Noriega. Noriega himself was once an ally of the United States because of his strong opposition to communism. But that relationship quickly hit the rocks. Immediately he started dealing in narcotics. He was eventually arrested on January 3rd, 1990 and flown to the US where he was tried for money laundering, narcotics trafficking and racketeering. Notice how the United States quickly moved against a former ally because he crossed a red line that they couldn't tolerate. A few years after Manuel Noriega's saga, precisely in 1993, one Bola Tinubu was tried in absentia in Chicago in a civil forfeiture proceeding where he forfeited $460,000 being narcotics proceeds. The USDA was also involved in that investigation, just like in the case of Manuel Noriega. The US Customs also flagged his house address as a drop-off point where narcotics packages coming from Africa are picked up in the United States. In 1992, before Tinubu's trial in absentia in America, he contested for a senatorial seat in Lagos and won. But the Third Republic was aborted when MKO Abiola's presidential election win was annulled by the IBB regime. In 2022, before the presidential primaries in the different parties, a lot of people took interest. They wanted to dig into the past of the major candidates to know them better. The presidency is not just the highest office in the land. A president has enormous powers, so you don't want to entrust that to someone you don't know well enough. You don't want to entrust that power to an ex-convict or someone with a questionable character who was involved in narcotics trafficking and money laundering to the tune of millions of dollars. Yes, the Nigerian constitution actually forbids such a person from being the president or governor. We have made that mistake in the past. In Nigeria's Delta State, an ex-convict was mistakenly elected as governor. James Ibori was convicted for theft in the UK in the 90s, but he successfully hid that information. No one knew about it. So since that Ibori mistake happened, Nigerians started taking politicians' character seriously. Imagine being led by an ex-convict who has executive powers. So while many were investigating the past of the major candidates in the presidential election, Nigeria's investigative journalist David Hundeyin was the first to make a breakthrough. He discovered that the person who was admitted in the Chicago State University where Bola Tinubu claims to have attended, that the person was female. Yes, he has been very resourceful. His contributions to the Nigerian project cannot be overemphasized. A whistleblower also sent him Tinubu's Guinean passport, which proved that he lied that he didn't have a dual nationality, which the constitution actually forbids. At this stage, a lot of people might be thinking, what's the US got to do with all this? Why the reference to Manuel Noriega's case? The US actually has a lot to do because they are actively blocking the release of more damaging information on Tinubu. In any type of investigation, when you reach a particular stage and discover something new, it opens a can of worms, and you have to answer all the questions in order to move forward. That was why David and his associates made a request from the FBI to release all the information they have about Tinubu. But you know what? They refused. When pressed harder, they even had to go to court to force them to release the information. They now said that they will only release them in 2026.
Silence is complicity. We must not remain silent.
Yes, Mr. President, you're right. Silence is complicity. The fact that you're not talking about it, the fact that you didn't use your executive powers to force the FBI to give the Nigerian people the information they seek, means you are complicit. Why are you protecting Tinubu? Can someone like him with a checkered past contest the US presidency? Even if he did, the FBI won't block the information about him when the opponents seek them. Even the court will not block it like one of the opponents in the presidential election subpoenaed Chicago State University to provide the information so that he can use it in court to disqualify him. But you know what? They refused. The court declined the request based on technicality. So you can imagine what would have happened if the United States released the information on time. Maybe he wouldn't have won his party's presidential primary because the information would have been so damaging that his party would have said, no, we can't touch this man with a 10-foot barge pole. And if he didn't win the primaries, maybe the presidential election would have been freer and fairer because none of the remaining candidates have the kind of money he has. His company collects taxes for Lagos state government. After making his cut from the taxes collected, he can now afford to buy apartments in New York worth millions of dollars for his kids. He also bought a luxury mansion worth $11 million in London for his son. So by now you can understand why the United States didn't apply the same standard they applied in Manuel Noriega's case to that of Tinubu. They have files on him about his secrets and whatever crime he committed in the past. So if they release these files to the public, they will lose their leverage. Keeping those files allows them to get whatever they want from him. Whatever they want from Nigeria or whatever influence they want, they will get it from him. They can control him. That's why the US Vice President called Tinubu immediately after the coup in Niger. And immediately after the call, he started talking tough. He started threatening to invade Niger. How can Nigeria go to war with a country that didn't invade our territory? We didn't do it in the early 2000s during Obasanjo's administration, when Cameroonian soldiers actually invaded Bakassi. Nigeria will go on to resolve the crisis through the courts. Now, compare that to Niger. Niger did not invade any of our territory. In fact, Niger collaborates with us to fight cross-border insurgency. Also, bear in mind that the former president survived an attempted coup not long ago in his country. So on what basis will Nigeria justify the invasion of Niger when our territory is not under any threat from them? This is very clear. Everyone understands this in Nigeria. Even the Nigerian Senate understands this. That's why they rejected his request for military intervention in Niger. So you can understand why the United States supports these kind of characters to be in positions of power so that they can use them to press their buttons. If they want to fight a proxy war, they use them, they will just turn around and say, yes, sir. They don't consider their people, they don't consider the country in question. They just say yes, like a robot. And nothing good ever comes out from such people. Look at Bagudu, someone that laundered millions, if not billions of dollars for Abacha in the 90s. He's even facing a forfeiture proceeding in the US right now worth more than $200 million. And he was appointed a minister. What these people will do to Nigeria can only be imagined. He just sacked all the CBN directors, saying they want to conduct an investigation into the tenure of the current governor, who is still in detention, by the way. This is just a smooth screen. He just wants to put his own people who will be answerable to him. People who will not say no to him whenever he makes a request. The United States, France, the UK, and other Western countries, they don't really care about what is going on in Africa. What they care about is what's in it for them, their own interest. Are the African leaders their allies? Do they have their ears? Can they do anything they want from them? That's what they care about. Look at what is happening in Angola. They are currently protesting. The man has been in power for how many years? No one will tell him to quit power now because he's their ally. But when a military coup happens, you will see everyone on their feet, shouting and condemning it. By the way, we are not in any way in support of military coup, but you can't wish it away. In Nigeria and most African countries, people involved in an unsuccessful coup will most likely face the capital punishment. But that thin line between unsuccessful and successful makes all the difference. If a military coup succeeds, it becomes a revolution because they actually threw away the constitution after taking over power. They don't govern by laws, they govern by decrees. And those decrees later become law when they eventually hand over power, like in the case of Nigeria. All the decrees promulgated by the military over the years were later made acts of parliament by the National Assembly. Even the current Nigerian constitution was handed over to Nigerians by the military. A revolution is not anticipated in the constitution. That's why they throw it away and govern by decrees, which puts them above the constitution because they were the ones that eventually wrote another one and handed over to democratically elected government. They never conducted a referendum to adopt a new constitution. In Burkina, they have done that. So a military coup is only illegal when it doesn't succeed. No one has gone back in time to try people who were involved in military coup. Even Buhari, who deposed Shagari and elected president, later came back and stood on the ballot and was eventually elected 2 times. In conclusion, the West is not interested in the development of Africa. What they care about is their own interest. Look at the coverage of the military coup in Niger by the Western press. Compare that to the coverage of Nigerian elections. They've been on this military coup because it's against their interest, they've lost control of Niger, and potentially they can lose all their military bases in Niger. Back to Nigeria, it is expected that with all the baggages that this man has, that the presidential election petition court will disqualify him and declare the true winner so that the presidential election can be brought to a close. Thanks for watching.